So I like the idea that we've gotten really comfortable here in the library. We're sitting down at a table. There's a fire going in a fireplace somewhere, and we're just reading this book. The one that Michael was studying yesterday. So we'll start with the introduction. Oh, well. Here we go. A thick and weighty tome. Its full title is A Historical Overview of Superstitions in the Miskatonic Valley Region by J. Answorth Fraser, published in 1906. It begins, although New England has always been an abundant storehouse of American myth and folklore, the Miskatonic River Valley has long been recognized as particularly fecund ground for tall tales and fanciful superstition. Legends abound of hideous, inhuman races living within the venerable hills, of pagan rituals enacted at unholy burial grounds and dedicated to ancient blasphemous gods, and continues along the same lines in the typically dry and bombastic style of those times. Interesting. Historical Overview of Superstitions in Miskatonic Valley. The Legend of Crozius Verlac. This chapter deals with the strange mythology surrounding the person of Crozius Verlac, the first of the American Verlacs, who immigrated from the Black Forest region of Germany in the early 1600s. He settled in the Miskatonic Valley and there helped establish the small fishing port soon to be known as Anchorhead. Yeah, we know all that already, game. You've got nothing on us. Crozius? Wait. Oh, that's how he's spelled. No wonder I didn't find him anywhere. With an S, Crozius. Okay. Crozius sired 6 raven-haired daughters. Holy crap, that's a lot. And schooled all of them at home. The girls were reclusive and odd of habit. And by the time the eldest turned 15, the town had all but openly accused them of witchcraft. Remember that one scene from the gallery where 5 women are burned at the stake? So I bet the 6th one that continued to live after this was Justitia, right? Townsfolk shunned the Verlac daughters and called them the old man's coven, although never within earshot, since Crozius was already a very powerful and influential man in that region. Although he never had a son, Crozius apparently sired a number of grandsons by more than one of his daughters. Ostensibly, yeah, this seems to be a thing, and we knew all of this before. I feel so smart now. That's pretty cool. Ostensibly to keep the Verlac blood pure, such practice being not uncommon in the more secluded and xenophobic early settlements. However, most of the male children were born dead, or horribly deformed, or both. And there were furtive whispers that Crozius was practicing some form of dark sorcery on his progeny. The fact that Crozius fell ill on the day that his first healthy male child was born, to his youngest daughter, and died before the day's end, did not go unnoticed. Okay, now I get it. I'll talk about this later though. After Crozius died, the townspeople turned against the coven, burning all of them to death except for Justitia, the youngest, who managed to escape along with her infant son Wilhelm. She returned some years later, 10 years to be exact, in 1663, after an outbreak of smallpox wiped out much of the town's older population. Oh, she was a witch, she cursed them, right? Including the Calvinist minister and every last man and woman who had participated in the burning of Verlac's brood. Whoa, that's pretty dark. She took her vengeance. With this start, you remember the pattern you uncovered in the city archives. It's cool that this acknowledges what we found out earlier, though. Each Verlac dying on the very day his grandson is born. No parents listed in the birth certificates, no marriage records, only sons, then daughters, then sons. And a sickening, horrifying thought begins to take shape. What if the foul tradition begun by Crozius Verlac did not end with his death? Exactly. What if, for centuries, the Verlacs have been raping their own daughters in order to sire grandsons? So that's why it's always the grandson. What in God's name was wrong with this family? How could this have gone on for so long without anyone knowing about it or trying to stop it? And why does each Verlac die on the very day his grandson is born? Edward Verlac, the man from whom Michael inherited the house and all its madness, must have been the last of his line, the child of his mother and his mother's own father. He went insane and killed his entire family, and now his legacy has been passed on to your husband. With a sudden rush of urgency and fear, you realize that you have to get out of this town, and you have to get Michael out with you as soon as humanly possible. Yeah, right. So my theory now is that Edward probably didn't go crazy. I mean, to a degree he did, but he probably realized the same thing and said, this has to end. The only way to end this is basically to end our line and kill everyone. And he probably didn't know that there was like Michael, who's like some distant relative. I don't know how they're related, but still. Which would, I mean, maybe there is hope for Michael though, because this obviously this like breaks the tradition, right? Because Michael is not both Edward's son and grandson, but someone else from the family, and Michael wasn't born of incest, as far as we know. Like, he wasn't born of Edward and his daughters. I mean, as we know, Edward killed his daughters, so he only had daughters. That seems to be a thing with Verlacs, right? They have, like, they get married, the men, but then only have daughters, or if they have male children, then these die very early. And then once their daughters get to a certain age, they rape them. They rape the daughters, and then have both children and grandchildren that are male that way. Pretty dark. Why though? We gotta find out why. Still, the line's been kind of broken with Michael, as far as we know. So maybe there is hope for him. I don't know. Rituals of the Miscut Indians. So obviously, like, there's a very high chance that you never get to read this book here, right? Which is when you don't steal Michael's faculty card, you don't get to read this. And obviously, much of this we figured out without the book on our own, right? By just looking at the dates. But it's kind of hard to get the grip of it. I mean, unless you write it down as meticulously as I have, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, that's when I find out, basically, right, that Eustacia had her children basically at the same age that Anna had her first child, or rather, the child that she had after she was being raped. I was like, oh, Croesus must have done it too. But if you don't write it down like that, then, and you don't get to read this book, then you won't find this on the first playthrough, maybe. Rituals of the Miscut Indians. And yeah, we thought before that maybe the Miscut Indians who actually started this curse, possibly, or maybe it's just something that Croesus came up with while he was still back in Germany. We don't know. Little is known about the enigmatic Miscut Indians. They are believed to have occupied a small, unobtrusive area around southeastern Massachusetts, along the banks of the river which now bears their name. Oh, Miskatonic, that makes sense, okay. At the time that this book was published, various property disputes prevented any thorough archaeological investigation. We read about that. Information regarding this tiny sequestered tribe is therefore scarce and based largely on hearsay and folklore. An analysis of the only known fossil, a partial skull, has led to some anthropologists to conclude that the Miscut were not indigenous to the region. One popular theory holds that the tribe is most closely related to certain degenerate branches of the northern Eskimo. Degenerate branches, come on. And were perhaps driven from their original subarctic climb and forced to settle in exile in what would become the northeastern United States. Although precious few physical artifacts have been recovered, Chief among them a pair of ritual masks and crudely carved 7-holed wind instrument. Aha! I have one of those. Tall tales of miscut ritual abound. They appear to have been a unilaterally reviled tribe. Most of the whispered stories involve horrid, ululating chants and blazing bonfires in the dead of winter night, grotesque copulations performed in honor of bestial gods, and of course abundant human sacrifice. The miscut were generally known as child stealers. Children are still being stolen, as you might remember, creeping through open windows at night to perpetrate foul kidnappings. None of these claims can of course be verified. Nearly all Indian tribes encountered by the first European settlers have been subject to such prejudices at one time or another. It is known that the miscut were most likely star worshippers and possessed what was likely a quite complex theology involving entities that dwelled beyond the bowl of tiny fires. Their term for the night sky. These entities granted wisdom or insanity, bestowed prosperity or famine, according to how well or laxly the tribe performed its ritual appeasements. The rituals attempted to contact or possibly summon aspects of these entities through elaborated carved beacons, mounds of stones or obelisks placed at significant geographical locations, obelisk in the center of town. A few eroded hieroglyphs left by them, oddly the miscut were one of the few North American tribes to have developed a system of writing prior to any contact with Europeans, have proved a compelling but so far intractable puzzle for linguists today. All further detail about the ritual and mythology remains yet a mystery. So apparently this miscut mythology is deeply tied into the story of both Anchorhead and the Verlac family, right? And I was theorizing earlier when looking at the scenes in the gallery that either the white settlers and more specifically the Verlacs committed some kind of genocide against these Native Americans, put them in death camps, possibly what is now known as the paper mill, and then the curse came about from that. The curse that all of the Verlacs are tied together by chains through the generations, forced to rape their own daughters, forced to have their original sons die and be deformed, and to carry on the curse that way. I mean, that's my explanation, my tentative explanation so far. The Dark Man and other aspects. Nearly all of the European settlements circulated stories of being known as the Dark Man, that lived in the primordial woods beyond settlements' borders. Deeply religious and at the same time almost hysterically superstitious, clinging precariously to the edges of unexplored and therefore terrifying continent, it was only natural for people in those times to project their collective fears onto the unknown. Still happening today, though. For the predominantly fundamentalist Protestant sects that first colonized the New World, these projections typically were embodiments of the Christian concept of the devil. The Dark Man generally takes the form of a man, sometimes of large or even giant stature, but more often no larger than a natural human. He is invariably dark-skinned, although rarely described as a Negro. Most often he is Caucasian with jet-black skin, thus combining the refined, cunning intelligence of the European with the base carnality of the African. Wow, racist much. He is regularly portrayed as the consort of witches. He has many names: the Dark Man, the Grinning Man, Old Scratch, Springwheel Jack, the Evil One, etc., but always his formal biblical appellation. Lucifer, or Satan, is scrupulously avoided, holdover from the tradition that to speak a demon's name is to attract his attention and perhaps even summon him. More interesting to the folklorist are the names that harken further back than these simple Christian superstitions, recalling more pagan portrayal of the dark and unknown. These tales, which originate from the more reclusive colonies, often bring out the more animalistic, nature-worshipping aspect of the dead man, or dark man. He is sometimes pictured being covered with hair, having hoofs instead of feet, resembling classical images of Pan, therefore the flute, and therefore the deformed children, such as William, who ended up looking like animals, right? His names are more obscure: the Wicca or Wicca man, the Black Goat with 1,000 young. Therein lie tantalizing clues offering the entertaining folklorist still deeper glimpses into the collective unconscious. A few rare instances of the Darkman have been uncovered that point beyond even these antiquated references. Bizarre aspects that seem to reflect some of the less understood concepts of Native American mysticism. Such baroque names as the Lurker at the Threshold or the Watcher Beyond the Stars point to a substratum of human mythology as yet untouched. These versions typically describe not physical manifestations, but rather abstract concepts of evil and time that some scholars have linked to the pre-Roman god Saturn, before he became characterized as merely the father of Zeus, when he was instead identified with the Ouroboros dragon, devourer of worlds. That's pretty funny. I'm playing The Witcher 3 right now in my other playthrough, as you might know. I'm playing it for like a second or third time actually, but I'm just at a point where we had to steal together with Yennefer, basically our girlfriend, from a druid the mask of Ouroboros, and it was also spelled Ouroboros, basically like the dragon devourer of worlds. But then again, The Witcher is so resonant with like literary and cultural references that's not really a surprise for me to learn. Hopefully, as more archaeological evidence is uncovered, we will be able to speak more of these primordial connections with greater confidence. So this is all very interesting, but I think nothing of this really warrants writing down. It explains some of the things going on with William, though. The Strangling Mist legend. Something mist also. The mist is definitely important. The first time I realized this was when we were walking through the town with Michael to our house, and at some point it said it almost seems like the mist is like dissipating or moving away when Michael approaches. Rather unique to the lower Miskatonic River Valley, this tale centers around a seemingly malevolent fog that roams the forest and lonely night roads, choking the unwary traveler with invisible, untouchable hands. The experience of being attacked by the strange entity is described in 1855 journal as like as though a dead man were to put his corpsey fingers down your throat with one hand, up your nostril with the other. No two tellings can agree on the origins of this terrible mist. Some accounts insist that it is a spirit of the restless dead. Others attribute the effects to malicious hobgoblins. Other versions implicate witchcraft, a pirate's curse, swamp fairy. The list goes on. Some of the more esoteric explanations seem to indicate that the legend was adapted by white settlers from native superstitions held by the tribes indigenous to the Miskatonic region. However, there is no evidence as yet that the strangling mist existed in any form prior to the appearance of Europeans. Interesting. I say it's a representation of the Native Americans that were burned in what is now known as the paper mill in a large genocide. Something like that, right? And lastly, we have the ghost train. The train being an important motif, obviously as well in this. I can't quite place its significance yet, but definitely there's train tracks in the city, and we've had a train go by before, right? We actually used it to break open the puzzle box. But apparently there's also a ghost train legend. Let's read up on that. So, yet another colorful folk legend involves the recurring image of a ghost train, a spectral locomotive that materializes from nowhere, glides across the haunted track for a short period of time, and then disappears as mysteriously as it came. This story did not originate among the first white settlers, of course. Obviously, it only came into being after the advent of the steam locomotive in our burgeoning machine age. The earliest known recorded version of this story, in fact, is dated 1882. Nonetheless, the legend provides us with an interesting example of how the collective unconscious is a really cool concept, by the way, adapts itself to changing aspects of our culture, cloaking old symbolism in the trappings of new technology. Although many versions hold that the ghost train represents the ghastly echoes of a locomotive that was wrecked, derailed and lost over mountain pass in the most popular means of destruction, this is in fact a simplistic interpretation not seen until many decades after the myth originated. More intriguing and more useful to the folklorist are versions that explain the ghost train as a transport to the land of the dead. Ah. Like, okay. Yeah. A modernized boat of Charon, ferrying damned souls across the shroud of the devil's newly industrial hell. Oh, this is so cool. This is so cool. They're the versions which most faithfully maintain links to the traditions of the past and demonstrate the curious evolutionary behavior of the myth. In some of these tellings, the traveling soul must have a ticket to present to the grim conductor. Like to Charon, you have to give a coin to Charon in order to take him across the Styx, right? The river of death. I just know the train tracks in this town, some miles out of town, they cross the river Miskaton at some point. And I'm wondering whether this represents crossing the Styx, whether the Miskaton is representative of this river of death as well. Which is interesting because there's a door beneath the bridge right next to the Miskaton, which might lead somewhere spooky as well. I don't know. Into the underworld. The old guy, the doctor, referred to it as the underworld or something like that as well, right? Or his retreat as well, something like that. In some of these tellings, the traveling soul must have a ticket to present to the grim conductor, an element directly analogous to the ancient custom of placing a gold coin or gold coins beneath the tongue to buy passage to the underworld. Yeah, right. Living souls who ventured too near to the tracks as the ghost train made its nightly sojourn would find themselves swept along, echoing the Celtic or Germanic myth of the wild hunt. Wow. That's obviously the entire myth that The Witcher 3 is built around. This is so cool. In which witness, I didn't even realize before I started playing this that this is so deeply steeped into myth and legend and evokes so many references that are similar to what The Witcher does actually. In which witness, I mean, now I'm almost thinking that the Witcher guys like the CD Projekt guys have also played this game, played Anchorhead, maybe, I don't know. In which witnesses were compelled to join as either hunter or prey. Those who thus boarded the train by accident, madness, or mere foolishness were inevitably carried back to whatever eldritch dimension from whence the train originated. Tales of return voyages are rare and generally held by those who pass them along to be apocryphal. Cool. This is awesome. The score has just gone up by 1 point. Why just 1? Why just 1? We did read all of them, right? And they're all cool pieces of writing. Every little of these stories, and they're tied together so neatly in this myth of the Verlac family and of Anchorhead. The legend of Crocier's Verlac, rituals of the Misket Indians, the dark man and other aspects, a strangling mist, the ghost train. Beautiful. Fraser. So put Fraser in pocket. I wonder if they let me take it. Probably not. I'll probably have to give it back, right? Get up. East. Oh. I mean, I do have the book now in my video here, so I can go back and read it whenever. High counter divides the public portion of the library from the reserved stacks, all the more esoteric and mysterious volumes from the university's collection. If anything, the area behind the counter is even more shadowy than the side you're on. The main reading area lies south. Hanging on the wall next to the counter is a small printed sign. Read sign. All restricted books must be signed for on the register, and may not be removed from this building. Please have your faculty ID ready when you make a request. Okay. Beneath the sign sits a heavy dog-eared register, and sitting next to the register is a bell. Register. It's basically a log recording what book was checked out, who checked it out, and when. There must be hundreds of names here. Read register. Ring bell. Return book. Give librarian Fraser. Wordlessly, the librarian takes the tome from you and spirits it back. Ooh. Spirits it back to the shadowy depths of the reserved stacks. So yeah, I think it's basically possible to finish the game without reading this book. But there's so much cool background information, much of which we gleaned already because we are smart and we looked at a lot of things very carefully. But still some new stuff that's interesting for fluff and the like. Very cool, very cool. So we're gonna go east now. Yeah, in the distance you can hear the lonesome keening of a train whistle drifting in the wind. Also, we're outside of the library now, so let's get some wind noise going again. What's pure nature though? Oh, okay. Well, that won't work. Soundscapes. Circular breeze. How's that sound? That doesn't sound like a breeze. Okay, so let's just do wind noise, I guess. Also what? Okay, you should hear that now, I guess. I hope. Right. So what else was there to do? Right, so we wanted to speak to Jeffrey's most likely mother and to the doctor who's in the empty lot, right? That's the two things. And also something obelisk and pan flute. We saw this one painting where there was someone playing the flute next to two pillars or something. One might be, I mean, is one maybe the lighthouse, the other the obelisk, something like that. Maybe if we play it next to the obelisk, something will happen. I'm going to try that out now, I think. So we want to go east. Southeast. Okay. Play flute. No. Put all in code. Okay, north, east, west, north, East. No. West. West. North. So now we're in the shanty town. Knock on 11. She stares out with a mixture of trepidation and mistrust. So, ask her about Jeffrey. Oh. Ask woman about Jeffrey. The woman grows even paler, and she draws back from the door with a look of horrified loss. Suddenly the woman slams the door shut, and you hear the rattle of a bolt being drawn. So we didn't get anything out of her, but this is definitely a new reaction. Undo. Show woman newspaper. The woman glances at the snapshot of her son on the front page, and tears well up in her eyes. Ask about Jeffrey. Maybe there's a way to get more out of her. Hug her. Hug woman. That isn't necessary. Oh, come on. Comfort woman. That's not a verb I recognize. Totally not robots. What else do we have? Silver locket, bundle of soggy pages, keyring, bladder, handbook of matches, flashlight. Oh, the flashlights. Switch off flashlight. I hope I'm not draining the battery. Put all in coat inventory. Complete manual of wards and seals, a flashlight, an animal skull, an amulet, a family album, a strange black disc, a jewelry box, towel, ring, a torn journal, a typewritten notice, a lantern, and an old tin. Show woman skull. Black disc. Yeah, I don't think there is anything. Open locket. Knock on 11. Show woman locket. Okay, what could I speak to her about? Michael Anchorhead, Verlac. I saw too long ago. Maybe out paper mill. Mutely shakes her head. Edward Verlac. Huh. I don't know. I thought that this would reveal more actually. Now that we know what's up with her. Jeffrey Greer. showed her the amulet, right? What am I typing? Hmm. Yeah, I think that's it for now. Okay. So, south, west, west. No, wait, what? Northeast. Play flute. Unlock door. Southeast. Play flute. I thought we could like summon something from the depths or so, but maybe we need to know the melody or something as well. Turbulent water. Okay, so now we're back in the vacant lot. Can also see a flask which is empty here. Oh yeah, that's the flask we gave him earlier. I feel like I should be saving maybe. So ask man about... let's find out if that really is his name. Timothy Rebis. Bum shakes his head and looks away. "'Tain't my name no more," he says quietly. "No more. Quoth the Rebis, nevermore." If that's true though, he was born in like 85 years ago or something, right? Dr. Timothy Rebis. Out Jeffrey. The old man cannot look at you. "Aye," he whispers, "he's done it again, han't he? He's done it again, so he has." Does he remember Christopher Tilworth? No. No, so he probably won't remember the other kids then. What was the latest one? Terra, right? Terra Luffington. So about Howard Biedermeier, maybe. The cop. Julia, Anna, I've done that already, right? Julia, Anna. Son daughter. About Mordecai. Shrinks away from here. "Not here," he hisses. "Not anywhere. Where? Never speak it." Elijah. Don't know about that. Croceus with an S. Heinrich and Wilhelm. Doesn't know about those, okay. Wilhelm. Okay, that's also actually not as useful as I thought it would be. Eustacia, he's probably not going to know her as well then, right? New stuff we can show him. Show him... We showed him the flute already, right? What else do we have? Keys? Nah, he's not going to be interested in that. Broom? Nah. Maybe the black disc? No. Album? Manual? Towel, your wedding ring, a torn journal, a typewritten notice. Journal? Skull? What about it, he mutters. Tell him about Edward. The old man lets out a vicious cackle. They got to him, didn't they? Maggots got him good. Got into his head. The maggots got into his head, eating at him till he had to crack it open to get them out. Poor boy. Shakes his head. Delivered him, I did. Pulled him right out of his mama. Him and his... Suddenly he stops and will say no more. Ask him about maggots. The old man leans close and in a loud conspirational whisper begins to rant. Why, this whole town is full of them. So it is. They get into everywhere. They burrow in. They burrow into the ground. They burrow into your house. They burrow into your skin. They burrow into your head. And then, before you know it, the man grins horribly and makes twirling motions next to his temple with his index finger. They've eaten you all up, so they have. Eaten you from the inside. Ask Edward. He'll tell you. The man suddenly lets forth a wheezy cackle that reeks of dying liver. I'm still interested in his reaction to the skull. What about it? Tell him about Edward's coffin. Edward's bones. Family crypt. Aha! The man stares at you suspiciously. William was buried in the family crypt at his mother's request, so he was. What are you getting at? No. Aha! I knew there was something to do with this. The old man grows sickly pale. He raises one hand as if to ward off against the side of the skull. Deny the truth one more time. Then his hand drops and he sinks down into the mattress, groaning. Oh, it's true, he cries. It's true. God help my lying soul. It was her father who wished to kill the king. The thing. It was her father who wished to kill the thing, not Anna. Kill it to make way for another, he said. More fitting vessel. Why wasn't this one fitting then? Because it turned too soon, or? He wanted to try again. Gods, the depth of his evil. After the way the first one came out, he wanted to try again. Anna came to me and asked for my help. And what could I do? What could I do? It was her child, for God's sake. No matter what else it was. And she couldn't bear to lose it. But she had to weigh the coffin down with something. She had to weigh the coffin down with something? He sits up suddenly, fastening on you with a sick, pleading look. I've told you too much now, he whispers desperately. They'll know. The maggots will find out for sure. They'll find me, even in my hole. They'll find me. Lets out an eye-wateringly pungent breath. Perhaps it's the best they do. I've spent so long drowning my sins. Perhaps time's come to pay for them at last. This won't do me much good no more, he says, holding up his little copper key. Yeah, we want that key. And yet, closes his fist around it again. And yet, maybe there is a way. They say there's ways to protect yourself. Wards versus the evil eye and such. Perhaps if I could get me one of those. I don't want to give him the amulet. I have a feeling if I give him the amulet, then that'll mean that Michael will just turn evil. We need it for him. But then again, I don't know. I don't know what the other options are here. I'll save here for sure. Amulet. Do we have anything else that could double as a ward? Like the disc? Give him skull. Don't show me again, the old bum pleads, looking away. I've sinned enough. I don't need to be forced to look on it, so don't. So I don't. Show him newspaper. Give him wedding ring. Show him flute. Give him flute. Play flute. I really need to give him the amulet, right? I don't want it though. Maybe this is just the game trying to trick me into this. And then I lose if I do it. I mean, the guy in the shop specifically said, you take care of this amulet, right? It's gonna come in handy. It's gonna be important. But maybe its importance is to give it to give. But why would the old doctor need the amulet to protect him from a curse? Yeah. Score's gone up by 5 points. Really, though. Thank you kindly, miss. You're a generous one, you are. Turns the old man and closes his grimy fingers around the charm. I don't want to give him the amulet. And here you are, he says, tossing you the copper key. I'll pray it does you good. The old man staggers to his feet. I'll be getting on then, he says, if I can make a way before nightfall. Perhaps I'll be out of their reach before the maggots come out. He wraps the leather thong around his hand and closes his charm in his fist. Turns to you one last time. Don't let them find you, he says earnestly. Get out while you can. If you stay, they'll track you down eventually. It's the blood. He can smell it, so he can. And he always returns to his blood. He shambles off, up to the river walk toward Town Square, his shadow dragging along behind him, looking to the sky. You realize that the sun is nearly set. You've been talking to the old man for much longer than you thought, and it will be dark soon. Oh gosh. Maybe this is just the pity points, because I'm gonna lose soon. I mean, we're nowhere close the 100 points that are possible in this, right? I'll undo this. I mean, with this key, I could definitely get into the door beneath the bridge, right? And this, obviously, this also ends the day. But it either does because it's the correct way to progress the story, or it's ending the day because by giving the amulet away, you just screwed yourself over anyways. So I don't know. Put all in quote. What? No. Up. East. North. East. Aha! So this has changed even without us giving the amulet away. So that indicates to me that maybe that isn't the right call. Anyway, let's see here. Study. So what we did now was, of course, we went back to the mansion and then went up into the library and then the study where Michael was writing, but he's not writing anymore. The smaller room adjoining the library seems comfortable enough, although it is dusty and cluttered from having not been lived in for the better part of a year. Aside from the desk and the chair and the empty shelves, the only real feature of the room is the large ornate fireplace in the southern wall. A beautiful pair of mahogany sliding doors lead west to the library. Michael's laptop sits in the middle of the desk, humming quietly to itself. Also on the desk is a letter opener. Oh, a weapon. Although his computer is still on, Michael isn't here. In fact, you realize you haven't heard him anywhere in the house since he got home. And you even found him a newspaper. Where the world could he have gotten to? So maybe that just happens as soon as you find the newspaper. Because, I mean, that would be a legitimate reason to disturb him in his writing, right? Because he said, find me a newspaper. But now he's gone. X letter opener. It's a rather ornate thing with a silver hilt and a slim, sharp tip. We're gonna need that later on. I'm sure we're gonna murder someone. Also, we could possibly use that to open the door in the attic. Ah. Especially now that we have a newspaper as well. What else is there? Laptop. Fireplace. Fireplace. Fireplace is carved from beautiful dark-veined marble, a strange shade that is not quite a deep forest green and not quite a murky dusky red. The mantelpiece is flanked by a pair of polished brass spheres. Spheres. You see the room behind you in a distorted miniature, and your own face swelling and stretching comically as you peer into the sphere's reflective surface. Looking closely, you notice some smudges on the otherwise immaculately polished brass. They appear to be fingerprints. Aha! Doesn't budge. Move spheres. Turn spheres. A sphere... I'm so smart. The sphere twists clockwise a few degrees. There is a barely audible click, and the sphere snaps into its original position. Suddenly, the entire fireplace slides about 18 inches to the left, with a hollow, grinding sound, revealing a narrow corridor in the southwest wall. Wow. Look. Large ornate fireplace. Dark narrow corridor, drapes in the wall to the southwest, partially hidden by the marble fireplace. X corridor. Dark veined marble structure. Mantelpiece is flanked by a pair of polished brass spheres. Examine desk. It's an ordinary writing desk with a small drawer, which is closed. Open drawer. You open the drawer, revealing the cryptical Harmoniacon. X. Ugh. There's nothing short for this, right? Cryptical. The leather covers are worn and cracked, the metal corner fittings tarnished, the pages yellow and brittle. Inscribed on the title page are the words Cryptical Harmoniacon, Manual of the Eternal Servitors. It almost sounds like something from Warhammer 40k. Beneath what you presume must be the same words written in some strange, vaguely Arabic-looking alphabet. Read. Cryptical. The greater portion of the book is written in an incomprehensible, flowing cipher. However, the margins in several pages are glossed in English. The book appears to contain instructions for traveling to somewhere called the Domain of Nehillim, and for worshipping or perhaps summoning an entity that dwells there. He who is named not, he shall not be named, nor may that name be taught among his followers. That name which may be learned only by gazing upon his terrible countenance. More Harry Potter references here. The only specific details involve a ritual used to open a one-way portal into the womb of Nehillim, allowing the magician to enter or possibly throw some hapless soul into its chaotic, blasphemous depths. The ritual seems to have something to do with music, and requires the magician to attune your pillars to your resonant harmonicae, whatever that means. The rest, by only the barest contrast, is nothing but pure raving. Interesting. So, we saw the scene in the gallery, right, with the two pillars in the background, and someone was playing the flute. Requires the magician to attune your pillars and your resonant harmonicae. So we need to play the right tune in the presence of two pillars. Domain of Nehillim. Take, or rather, yeah, take cryptical. Look inside drawer. Drawer is empty. Close drawer. Examine the desk again. What else was there? Not lock. Look. Mahogany sliding doors. Desk and the chair. And the shelves. Examine the chair. Straight back wooden chair. Examine shelves. You needn't worry about that. Wait, did I misspell that? No, shelves. Okay. So the elephant in the room is of course the laptop, right? Top of the line model. It's sleek, lightweight and very fast. A real status symbol for the writer who wants to look as though he might stop one as though he might stop whatever he's doing at the drop of a hat and suddenly hack out a bestseller. While you have yet to witness Michael do this, he really had been wanting one since before the two of you even met, so to celebrate his new teaching position, you splurged and bought him one. The laptop is currently switched on. Read laptop. He's really wasting his energy a little bit, right? Considering we don't have any electricity in the house. The computer's in screensaver mode, blank except for a single window requesting a 4-digit user passcode. Odd. You didn't think Michael ever used the passcode utility. The passcode utility. Alright, before we break into his laptop though, we'll take a little break.